the last three meetings against Texas Tech, 15 to 16 in the red zone, averaging 3 yards, or 6 yards per play, 16 touchdowns, no turnovers. What has been the product or the reason for the offensive success and efficiency that you guys have had, given every year is different and given you've had different quarterbacks there?
Don't know. Played well, I guess. So all that research went for naught, right?
No, I'm unused to that. That's okay.
I don't. I can't really tell you. Prepared well and played well. That's the way it works.
How impressive is 16 touchdowns, no turnovers in 3 games, 12 quarters against the same opponent?
It has no impact on Saturday's game.
Texas Tech this season,
You don't give up, do you?
nobody's run on a team more in the Big 12 than against Texas Tech, and it seems on paper that they've given up more yards and more average yards per carry on the ground than they did even a year ago. Kingsbury and some players talked about tackling being one of the culprits. When you look at on tape, what are opponents able to do, and maybe what are some of the deficiencies that are leading to these large numbers?
Well, I mean, Cliff knows more about it than I do. I'm sure that is, that's a part of it. It is for any football team. But you go back and look. I mean, they opened the season with their second game with Arkansas, and Arkansas gets whatever it is, 445 yards of that. The last 2 ball games, rushing the other 3 ball games, I think there was one over 200 and 2 of them less than 200 yards. So, they're capable of defending, against the run. I think they've moved to the utilization of bigger people inside. I mean, they've got a 350 some odd pounder and a 310 pounder, sitting inside. That makes it a little bit more difficult, just by size.
One other one. Every game matters. What is the inherent sense of urgency and focus, though, that comes with this Big 12 season, knowing that the Big 12 has one true champion and that you're living in a league that isn't down with having a league title game at the end of the season?
Well, nothing changes for us. I mean, your opening sentence was sufficient. I mean, it's it's a day at a time and a snap at a time and a game at a time, and so I mean, all of them are conference games, so they all mean a significant amount. They're, as I said before, I mean, this will be the most important game we'll play.
Coach, switching gears to your defense, the last 2 games you played teams that really run the ball and concentrate on that. How much do you have to shift gears defensively now getting ready for the Tech's passing game?
Well, there's, the emphasis is, a little bit more broad-based. But, I think anybody would tell you still have to be able to defend against the run. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. And Texas Tech runs the ball more than, people would tend to believe. I mean, 38% of their snaps have been run plays. And some of those passes are really run plays, when they put that guy in motion and pitch the ball forward, like we've done with Lockett. And I mean, that's a completed pass. So, and it's really a run play. So, so you're looking at somewhere in the vicinity of 60-40 pass to run, and that's pretty decent balance when you look at it that way.
Going off that, what do you think is the biggest challenge for, say, a defensive back or a safety when they're so used to the last 2 weeks coming up and stopping the run, when now maybe they have to gear back and drop into coverage more?
Well, it shouldn't be that, and if we do it the right way, it isn't that. I mean, their eyes, are supposed to tell them, whether it's run or pass, and it's a matter of discipline and staying focused and putting your eyes in the right place and responding rapidly to what you see. And by that I mean UTEP threw the ball 28 times in the ball game, so there were 28 times in the course of that ball game, which is about over a third of the time. You had to be able to react to the pass as opposed to the run. So it just goes with the territory. It's going to happen every week, not just Texas Tech or whoever. So. And that's it. It's because it's one snap at a time. This snap can be run, it could be pass. You've got to be able to gear for both. So.
Maybe going off that a little bit with the secondary currently, Dante's really the only one that's had ample experience against such a kind of a spread team, or a team that likes to pass and go as quickly as what Texas Tech does. What is the advice to maybe some of these new guys and newer guys that are seeing the field as to how to slow down and how not to let one pass become two passes and things of that nature?
Well, hopefully it's built into the philosophy. It's a snap at a time. They come faster, but we try to prepare that way. And we see a lot of teams that do exactly that. Texas Tech is in the process of maybe becoming the quickest tempo team in our conference, but it's pretty close between them and Baylor and probably Oklahoma now. But so many teams do it. So we've had some experience against it. The new guys that haven't been in the program before experienced a little bit of it early in the season with Iowa State. Not a great deal, but a little bit. But it's it's just getting rid of the last one and getting yourself back to the line of scrimmage, getting the call, processing the information, and line up and play.
Is it a pretty daunting task for any defensive scheme to go against a team that likes to spread it out, use multiple guys, and go as fast as what you alluded to?
Well, it has its disadvantages and it has its advantages as well. I think it all works out in the wash maybe as much as anything, and it boils down to how well you play. Now, from a defensive standpoint, the obvious thing is you don't have time to really sit and process things as thoroughly as you would like to, but you just have to learn, and they're going through the same thing. See, in the offensive standpoint, they've got to process things as well. What's okay? We're going fast, but what's my assignment, and who's that mean that I block or don't block? So both sides have to do that. So offensively, you can make mistakes with it. Sometimes get yourself into things maybe that you wish you hadn't have gotten into, and just the antithesis of that is accurate for the defense. So it's somewhat of a trade-off.
Outside of Tyler and Curry at receiver, what do you think of what you're getting at that position right now?
I think we're making headway. We're doing all right. The others haven't had maybe quite as many opportunities to get the ball, but Burton and Cook have both been able to make some plays in the early part of the season so far. So maybe not as many as they'd like, but and it kind of depends on where you allow us to throw it. So, but I think they're doing fine. Yeah.
I was curious about Andre Davis too. We saw him pretty early in Stephen F. Austin game and haven't seen him much since. How's he doing right now?
Well, I think he's doing all right. He's still in the learning process. There's a lot of things that he has to digest and to become consistent. At what he does. A good athlete. Runs well. Just has to really learn the system.
Coach, I was going to ask you about Will Gary in his first start. As you looked at the tape, did he play as well as it appeared that he did?
Yeah, Will played fine, which is not a surprise. I don't think to any of us. He practices well, practices hard all the time. He's going to play exactly that way, and he does. Yeah, he's a good young guy.
I know you've been asked a lot about Tech's situation with Davis Webb, but let's assume he plays. What is it that you admire about what he does? And then secondarily, what is the challenges of trying to prepare for a kid that you just really haven't seen at all, or very, very little?
Well, what I admire about Webb is his competitive spirit. You know, we played. He started the ball game against us last year, and we played against him. I think he's made a great deal of improvement, you know, since that period of time, and that comes with being in the system over a period of time. And the other thing that I appreciated, what I saw on television, you probably saw the same thing, is, you know, his competitive nature and how disturbed he was by not being able to go back into the ball game when he was injured. And even though he was injured to whatever degree, I have no idea, but you know, he knew what that was, but he still wanted back on the field. So, you know, I admire that in the young guy. And you know, the other one, you know, you know, you watch the last half of the ball game, and I know he was 50% throwing, but you look when he finally got his comfort level, you know, in the latter part of the second half, you know, he completed some passes and threw some nice balls and got it where it needed to be, and then you add to that the fact that he can run the ball some. You know, there's some built-in issues, concerns for you. Yeah.
Cliff's now a little deeper into his Texas Tech tenure as head coach. So just from what you've seen from his programs, maybe, or what are some things that may have impressed you about what Texas Tech has developed through these now 2 years that he's been at the helm?
Well, I think there's just that, you know, he's developed that confidence that their offense can move the ball, you know, anytime, anywhere, you know, against anyone, anyway. And, you know, for the most part, they've been successful doing that. You know, just good. And that doesn't take anything away from the defense. It's just kind of, that's, you know, if you tried to identify a trademark, that's probably the direction you'd go.
Rich, you've always talked about the versatility of your offensive lineman, but can you talk about Cody Whitehair? It seems like he's made such a pretty easy transition from guard to tackle.
Well, you know, if you're a good player, which Cody is, and you know, if you work at it, which Cody does, and you study it, which Cody does, you can do those things, and he has, and obviously he does. You know, just a good player. You know, at the end of the day, blocking is blocking, and tackling is tackling, and he'll block you pretty well.
After the game, you were pretty complimentary of Jonathan Truman. I was just wondering, after you saw it on film, what do you think it was that he did that allowed him to play so well in that game?
Well, as I indicated after the ball game, you know, he's a very conscientious young man, and one of the issues that he had previously was, you know, kind of his pursuit angles, and consequently how it impacted his tackling and missing, overrunning some tackles. And he made a conscientious effort during the course of the week to prepare that, and he did a tremendous job of it. I mean, his pursuit angles were great, and he's always going to go hard. You know that. He's always going to play hard, play fast. He'll play smart. You know, sometimes he was just overrunning ball carriers that were going, you know, laterally. And he didn't, you know, and he made all of those tackles, you know, took the right angles, and fundamentally was, you know, did a nice job of tackling, and that was a big improvement, you know, and that's what we're all about, is getting better. We became a better team because he became a better pursuit and tackle person, and you know, that's what we try to get from everybody.
Coach, I was curious if you could revisit maybe the message, or maybe the collective mindset that you witnessed yesterday in meetings, given the fact that every game now is going to be a Big 12 game, and players kind of talk about how the mentality somewhat shifts during this stage of the season.
My mentality shifts?
No. Sometimes when the Big 12 season arrives.
Well, we're already one game into it. We've already played one, and I don't know that you know, if maybe that may be a perception, you know, somebody's perception, but you know, I don't necessarily think that I've changed, become any more intense, or change how I coach or we coach. I don't think I do. Perhaps if I'm envisioned that way, then obviously perception becomes reality, and then I need to address that personally. But they're all important. And I try to treat them that way so you don't have the ups and downs. You're playing a non-conference, that doesn't mean as much as something else. They all become significant. It's just like every step in your life is that way.
I'm sorry, I guess I was being repetitive from earlier. When you look at the offense and the way it did finish out this past ball game, what impressed you most, and what kind of footing maybe does that give you entering the first half against Texas Tech?
Well, yeah, I can't tell you that I really know. I think there was a segment, there was a period of 5 consecutive drives in which our offense scored, and the most significant thing was the execution was reasonably sound and good during that time. But the previous 4 possessions that we had, we got stopped inside the 30-yard line, which we're committed not to do, and we did. We ended up having to, we had 2 in those 4 possessions. We had 2 3-and-outs, which is extremely significant. And so my point is, it wasn't a good way to start. 2 3-and-outs plus having to settle for a field goal. So 3 out of 4 possessions being unsuccessful. So we didn't start well, I guess. And then, then we picked it up in those 5 possessions. I thought we played well in the second and third quarter. And then it was that substitution time, and the thing that was, irritating to me was that, the backups, even though at some point in time they did do some good things, some positive things, but, they weren't as well prepared. They didn't prepare themselves as well as I would like for them to have in order to, step into that role and continue whatever it is that, that we were doing. And as I shared with them, we practice our 2s probably more than anybody. Give them more repetition at what we do, probably than anybody in the country, as a guess. I don't know that for a fact. And so they've got to accept the responsibility of quality preparation, because it's, that those were wholesale substitutions, meaning, everybody. But, somebody's going to go down, and when somebody does, a backup has to be prepared. And if you don't prepare yourself well and that time comes, then you let your teammates down, you let yourself down, you let everybody down.
Coach, maybe along those same lines, with some of the guys that are atop the depth chart on defense, whether they were held out for precaution or whether they went off the field with a presumed injury, how confident are you with those number 2 guys that stepped in? If those guys aren't able to go on Saturday?
Well, I think it still remains to be seen a little bit. There's some guys might have some concern about, across the board. You go back and look, and our punt unit. We give up a block punt, so you give up field position. The drop snap, we give up field position. So that I don't charge those to our defense, and so I mean they weren't they weren't terrible by any stretch of the imagination, and they did some good things while they were in there. But as I said, it's there are 11 of them out there, and may not be comfortable with all 11 right now, but there were some in there that I don't have any problems putting on the field.
Yeah, are you thinking that you're going to be at full strength Saturday defensively?
I would hope so. Imagine so. So we still have practice today and tomorrow and Thursday, and you don't know what's going to happen. So ask me on Saturday morning.
Bill, 2 questions for you. First off, what kind of matchup problems do Grant and Marquez present at wide receiver?
Well, they present a problem for anybody. I mean, they're talented young guys. Got a wealth of receptions, last year as well as this year. They can run. They can do a lot of things. I mean, Grant's kind of an all-purpose guy, and they can do an awful lot of things with him. They're just very, very fine receivers. So, anytime there's somebody that's really good, then it's a matchup issue. No matter how good the other guy is, our guy.
Second one is, I know the sample size isn't very big, but from the Oklahoma State game last Thursday night, did you see any differences from Mike Smith being the defensive coordinator to what they had done under Wallerstedt?
Not a great deal. There are certain things. There's, percentages, which, you can take them or leave them. In regards to tendencies are reasonably the same. There are a couple areas that there's a differentiation. How they use their personnel there are some variances, let me put it that way, not completely different, but some variances. But as far as schemes are concerned, it's a continuation of what they've been doing.
I guess maybe a third along those same lines. How tough is that on players when you have something like that happen in the season, where you make that kind of switch?
Well, I don't know, or I couldn't speak to their situation because you don't know. I mean, some may get excited about, some of them are depressed by it. I mean, I don't know. It kind of depends on what the relationships were and what the change brings. It's hard to. I couldn't guess at it. I don't know.
Coach, going back to Cliff, how do you think he's fared facing adversity so far in his tenure at Texas Tech? He started out the first year doing really well, kind of struggled at the end of the season, gets the extension, starts out this season, and he's had to deal with some injuries and stuff. How do you think he's faced so far in his 2 years?
I don't know. Ask him. I would assume he's doing fine. It seems like whatever I see. I mean, I don't talk to him just because we don't. I mean, that's no. So I really don't know how he's faring. My guess is that he's doing quite well.
Yeah, just going back to a little bit about what you mentioned with Jonathan, it sure seems like this defensive unit as a whole sure has a just renewed sense of team speed maybe from a unit past. So maybe just kind of go into that a little bit, because it really seemed to show against UTEP and Auburn with those guys really flying to the ball.
Well, I think two things may enter into that, and I think you're accurate in the assessment. With a couple young guys added. We addressed this, I think, last week. Travis Green gave us a little bit more quickness at one of the safety positions, and DeCorey Johnson gave us a little bit more quickness at one of the linebacker positions. So that added to it. But I think collectively, it is work in progress, but it is becoming better. We're playing faster. That comes with experience. That comes with understanding assignments and recognition of things that are in front of you, and it comes with taking those appropriate pursuit angles that we were talking about earlier, and comes with just a mindset of playing hard and playing tough and playing aggressive, and I think all that is in the developmental stages. But you have seen it, and so have I. The progress that's being made. It's been positive.
Coach, just playing off of that a little bit, can you talk about Dansel McDaniel and his high energy play and what that brings to the defense as a whole?
Well, I like the way Danzel plays. I mean, he's a focused young guy, plays hard. Playing this game is, and he's new in our program, so I'm always still trying to get to learn more and more about him. But I really have appreciated a great deal how much it all means to him. For him, playing the game is really important, and he's into it, all the time. So, I think he just gets better and better and better. Would be my guess. He's reacting quicker to things. That's part of what we were talking about. You know, the speed of the game and being able to, the more repetition you get in the system, the if you're really focused at it, which he is, then you know you're probably going to improve at it and probably play faster, and that's what he's doing.
Coach, how would you evaluate your offensive line when it comes to the running game so far?
Well, I think we've still got a ways to go. You know, we've just been inconsistent. You know, you know, there were times just like, and the offense is probably going to go the way of the offensive line. That's probably true of everybody. You know, I mean, it's not just a 5-man game. We all understand that, but if you don't have those 5, you probably don't have much in the way of a running game for sure. And like I said, we've had our moments. You know, those 5 series that I mentioned to you earlier, where we scored touchdowns in each and every one of those. Our offensive line played very, very well. You know, you take the previous 4, probably not as well. So all that says is inconsistency, and you know, so you'd like to think that over a period of time that you, if dedicated to it, you will make the improvement and consistently get a little bit better. So we'll see.
Anything else?
I guess I'll ask.
Last question.
Coach, I know he hasn't been playing, but I think I spotted Kyle Klein helping out with the offensive coaches last game. What is just his situation right now?
Well, in all likelihood, he will have a medical red shirt and will be out for the remainder of the season, is my guess. And like we do with any youngster that is injured, we want to keep him actively involved with the program. So, you know, he just does some on-the-field help, garners information, you know, for our coaches on the sideline.
So he's been on the sideline?
He was in the sideline. It was last week. He was in the box a week previous to that. Just want to keep him involved. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach.
Thank you, guys.